And what I'm excited to dig into today is turning that painful experience into a joyful experience, being able to amplify that joy during this period of checkout, and building that into trust and using that as a competitive advantage, and really creating likability. So those are sort of the topics we're going to talk about. I'd love my panelists here to introduce themselves because you'll do a better job than I will.
All right, great. Thanks. Hi, everybody. By the way, speaking of joy, I am so loving all the cowboy boots. And if I haven't seen yours yet, please show me. That's the best part of being in Austin, Texas. Hi, everybody. My name is Andrea Gilman. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at a company called Early Warning Services. We are the network operator of Zelle. Many of you know, love, and use Zelle to send money to people you know and trust. Zelle has grown, launching in 2017, to now being a product that's offered by over 2,000 banks and credit unions across the United States. And last year, we reached volume of $1 trillion. Trillion. I mean, I don't know if you've ever tried to write out trillion. It's a lot of zeros. And now we are launching Paze. We just launched it in September of last year. Paze is online checkout solution from your bank or credit union. And I think the new and exciting thing here is we're really bringing the joy of shopping and this less painful but joyous payment experience to merchants as consumers check out online.
Very nice to meet you all. I'm Raphael Bouquillon. I'm sorry I didn't bring my cowboy boots today, but I'm VP of Account Management at SPCSHP. We are the creative agency. We had the joy to partner with Early Warning in order to launch Paze and create some of the work that we're going to talk about. And even we're going to give you a preview of it in a second. But being able to really understand consumer and make sure that we find a way to connect this new fintech product with what matters in their life was kind of the main assignment. So hoping to talk to you a little bit more about that today.
I like that one. That, I don't know, that resonates with me sitting in the tub trying to shop.
Try shooting those spots. So we had a lot of discussions about making sure there was enough suds over the man's body. We'd had the dogs, as you see, dogs are hard to control. We also have a spot called Nap Time with 4 babies. Well, there was 2 on set at the same time, but has anybody ever tried to shoot a spot with babies? It's very, very interesting. But yeah, they're really all fun. And I think what you probably saw there is we were really striking this balance between humor and relatability.
So while we're on the topic of humor and relatability, what I'd love to ask you to dig into a little bit is why, how did you get to joy as part of this process, right? That is not the first thought that comes to mind when we think about checkout.
Right. Well, no, it's not. And I don't know how many of you are online shoppers. I am a massive online shopper. There's nothing that I enjoy better. Literally on a Saturday afternoon, I'm seeing some head nods. I'm sitting on my couch with perhaps a lovely beverage by my side, and I'm shopping online, looking around for maybe the perfect gift or the perfect dress for an occasion or something like that. And then I find it, and I'm so excited. And then I go to check out, and what happens? Sometimes I'm a little bit nervous, and this is a typical consumer experience. I'm nervous maybe about giving a small merchant my card information, or worse, I'm like, I have to go up across the hall and get my card. Right? This is real stuff, right? So what we wanted to do, really, and the whole essence of Paze, is continuing the joy of shopping all the way through to checkout. So the idea here is that when you have a checkout solution, a payment solution, bringing that joy all the way through, that brand moment all the way through, by leveraging a couple key things. One, of course, is this idea of making it really easy and convenient, so people have an easy time checking out. But the really, really important thing we also wanted to couple with that was security, so that gets to trust. And so we make these checkout experiences really secure a couple key ways. One, of course, it's tokenized. So that also means, secondly, we don't share any of your payment information with the merchant.
So I love that you didn't go to a technical place in the spots, right? Like you kept it at a higher level. And so, Raphael, I'd love, from the agency perspective, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about who are you targeting with these ads, and how did you land on getting the message right for them?
Yeah, so clearly we're targeting dads with multiple daughters, but we really kind of looked at the audience and worked really closely with the EWS team to understand who would be the best fit initially for launching this product. So we're talking about a product that's coming from the banks, so kind of finding the right audience that's going to see the value of the extra security. So we dubbed our target the protectionist, and really kind of finding consumers who love shopping, who have that joy of shopping, but are a little bit more concerned about the data being potentially leaked or being able to feel a little safer when checking out. I don't know about you guys, but I don't love necessarily sending my credit card details to any random merchant. So being able to zero in on our audience and understand what they need. Do they need a full lesson on the back-end technical product? Probably not, but they definitely relate to the experience of shopping, and they want to be able to do that in a way that's convenient, in a way that's safe. So that was kind of the mission of the message that we just set out to communicate. But while safety is important, it can seem to be not necessarily the most fun, but if we really want to connect with consumer, we had to find a tone that would really kind of be relatable to them. So that's why we went with kind of this vignette approach where we show some very relatable, the bathtub, and we have like different relatable situation to be able to stand out. So yeah, luckily that's been working pretty well for us. Some of the research really showed that consumer really saw themselves in the ad. So it's a great starting point for introducing the brand.
Can you elaborate a little bit? Because I think one of the challenges as a brand marketer is getting humor right? Like we've all seen those places where it kind of tips over the line and you get into cringe territory and you're like, oh, they're trying too hard here. So can you talk a little bit about how did you figure out how to reach these protectionists and get the humor right?
Yeah, no, so that was super, super important to be able to get kind of that spectrum of humor right. But we're talking about a brand that people don't know. So we really looked at it as how can we get people to connect with the brand the same way that they connect with other people. So you don't know me very well. If I come in and I make a joke and hopefully you laugh, you find me a little bit more likable. And then from there, you might be more open to trusting what I'm talking about. But if I can go too far and my joke is kind of cringy, so that's why I'm not going to make any jokes, that's going to kind of get you to sign off a little bit. So being able to really kind of place the cursor between relatability and humor. In research, we had some of the scripts where we had a woman, she was online shopping hanging from a cliff. So we're like, okay, maybe we went a little too far on this one. But that's where the value of kind of trying to push the envelope. We need to stand out in a category that's already, we have some big players in there. So being able to stand out, but in a way that's kind of relevant for the consumer.
If I could kind of build on that a little bit too, and it goes back to some of the conversations that were being had this morning or earlier today. We wanted the humor to be relatable and authentic. What we were really looking to do, and there's 5 different stories in our initial brand campaign, is when people see these spots, they say, "Oh, I recognize that. That's me in there." My personal favorite is about a mom with 2 young kids, and she's shopping while she's playing hide and seek, right? And I don't know if anybody has young kids, but like this is something I definitely did. Like I got home from work. I knew it was super important to play with my kids and spend quality time. But yeah, maybe once in a while I did sneak off to the side and buy the new pair of shoes I wanted, right? So this whole thing, when people see it and they recognize it, it feels authentic, it feels relatable, and they chuckle because, oh, you found out a truth about me. So that was really the sweet spot and the zone that we were going for in our campaigns.
Was that, we heard a little bit, and the days are blurring together for me. I can't remember if it was this morning or yesterday, but we had heard a little bit about the importance of the brief. Was that part of the brief, or how did you get to that place? Did you start out with saying, hey, we want humor and likability and we want trust and we want these things, or did you get there organically?
No, it was definitely all part of the brief. And as Raphael was talking about, the key for us was really honing in on the consumer segment that we wanted to go after first. I think a lot of people hear wallets or online checkouts, and a lot of us are technically savvy, and we're like, oh, everybody's already using them. They're not. There's a big majority of consumers who are really careful about how they give away their card information. They do not want to have it stored by a third-party provider or stored at a merchant per se. And so that was the core. So we called this group the Protectionists, and everything sprung from there. And so when we did the brief, we really also dug deep into the fact that this group of people really values the idea of technical ease, but again, feeling really safe and secure when they're making transactions. So that was core to the brief. And then we did really believe that we wanted it to be funny. We wanted to be able to really kind of break through. And humor is also something that we've used quite a bit in our Zelle campaigns. We know it's something that works for us as long as we're staying, again, in that kind of zone in terms of being authentic and relatable.
Does anybody see themselves in this protectionist group? Can I get a show of hands? Is anybody here a protectionist? Yeah, I think there's some of us who fall into that sort of concerned and distrustful category. So it's interesting to figure out, how do you reach that audience through this humor and likability, but how does that drive brand outcomes? And I think maybe Raphael, as on the agency side, like, how do you think about generating the brand outcome around a brief like that?
For sure. And when we introduce a new brand in the market, there's a few different things. First of all, it's a brand that nobody's heard of, and hopefully by now you'll remember Paze. So we had to make sure it was clearly branded and communicated the name of the brand, and kind of framing where you can expect to see the brand. And we're still in the middle of rolling it out with so many new merchants. So making sure that people know about Paze when they see that on a merchant website is key. But then kind of one step below is making sure that we create that connection with the consumer, and not only they know about us, but they really associate us with something positive. And that's where that relatability and being able to stand out with the message, and ultimately the credibility that comes from the bank and the convenience that comes through that was really important in order to make sure that people convert and use the service. And right now, I think painting the picture, making sure that people understand it, we're really happy to see that in research, in quant, consumer are really getting it. And really, we managed to kind of simplify the story to really a simple nugget, and people are really getting that. And now it's all about kind of how we, in the next chapter, how do we promote that with specific merchants and so many of the website that we work with, so that people can experience the joy of shopping where they normally shop.
And Andrea, I think in that, in talking with you and the team before, what's interesting about your business specifically is it's a three-sided network. We often hear about two-sided networks. You have three sides to the network. And Raphael, you earlier used the word trust and credibility. And I think there's, in this really complex network where you have banks, merchants, and consumers, and you're trying to build trust with all three. Can you talk about the thought process around that, and how trust, obviously we're seeing trust factoring into the campaign itself, but more largely as you launch the brand, how do you think about creating that trust and credibility?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's this main idea of consistency. And when you talk about building a two-sided network, which is always really an interesting kind of endeavor to take on. There's basically three kind of levers from the marketing side, and having a consistency across, right? So we've been showing you the Paze brand campaign and what that looks like. The second really important lever is marketing through the bank channel. And that is a really interesting channel to work through. So we work with the banks, and the campaign is consistent throughout. But the interesting thing about working with banks is a few things. First and foremost, consumers really respond to messages they get from their bank. For instance, an email open rate from your bank is twice as high as from any other provider, right? And I think everybody's nodding. They know if you get an email from your bank, you're going to. Also, your bank tends to know what you like. They tend to know where you spend money and where you shop. So it's really interesting to work through the bank to actually help find the offers and things like that consumers will be interested in. And then the third lever is working with the merchants. So we worked really closely with our early merchants, whether it be Fanatics or 1-800-Flowers, Sephora, etc., to create campaigns that are centered around their goals. And that's where I also think that's where the win-win-win comes along when you're working across all these partners. And we've seen some really nice results in our early campaigns with the merchants.
I don't know how you read my mind. I was going to ask you, so what have the results been like?
Yeah, Raphael, maybe you want to talk a little bit about some of the brand campaign, and then I can talk a little bit about the merchant side.
For sure. Yeah, so from a brand likability standpoint, we've been really happy. I mean, the financial category, there's very established players, banks. We work really hard to really kind of have very compelling marketing messages, and being able to be above benchmark on that. And when we talk about brand awareness, we started the rollout in September of last year, so it's still very recent. And from a brand awareness standpoint, we're really seeing a consistent spike over time. So I think right now about a quarter of consumers in the US know about the brand, which is already, in the first few months is really exciting. So now the main focus is going to be making sure that people actually get to experience Paze firsthand and transact with it, so that we can match the trillion from Zelle. But we're well on the way. The merchant part, and I think, Andrea, you're going to talk to the merchant part, is really kind of where now we need to continue pushing to be able to be part of people's life.
Yeah, so we've been also working on some campaigns that are really focused around certain merchants. So for instance, we just did a 1-800-Flowers campaign at Valentine's Day. We were using some of those really kind of authentic influencer types, like real people talking about, for instance, what the color of flowers you send to your loved one means about your relationship. So we had a little bit of fun with it. And we're doing those kinds of campaigns with the merchants, and the results so far have been really nice. We're seeing that the merchants are able to gain new customers, but they're also seeing, of course, the transaction go through, so the conversion, fewer abandoned shopping carts, and also a higher average order value. So these are really great results that merchants that we're working with are seeing, and I think it really speaks to that power of partnerships and win-win-wins all around.
So you're not just driving results that you can go talk to your CFO about, you're driving results for your partners for them to go talk to their CFOs.
That's the whole idea. That's the whole idea. I think there's a lot of power when everybody is mutually motivated for the same outcome.
Yeah, and I think it's, as somebody who's constantly looking at the numbers, right, it's not that often that you can go and say, look, there's some real financial results that are being driven as a result of this awareness. And in my notes from our prep sessions, you guys have driven double-digit increases in brand awareness to drive these financial outcomes, which I think is really great. And it's, again, as a marketer, it's always reassuring when you can point back to financial results. I also wanted to talk about the category. You mentioned just briefly financial services, and Andrea, you said that financial services doesn't have to be boring. And I think I just want to come back to some of the creativity and how you think about this category. And we saw PNC Bank yesterday saying brilliantly boring, and they're trying to change the concept around boredom. And so I feel like there's something here when you look at your own industry and you say, hey, we don't have to be traditional. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I think when people are thinking about financial services or technology, new technologies, a lot of people first and foremost think, like, how do I get the value proposition across? How do I make sure that people understand it? And that was absolutely part of the brief. Like, we really wanted to make sure that people understood what the product or service was. But we also thought it was very important to be lighthearted and light-toned about it, so that people would find it relatable. And that's a tough balance to strike, but I do think that does create the most compelling campaigns that are out there. Even even things like talking about how boring you are, that's funny, right? That's a little bit tongue in cheek, and that's really, really important. So I do think that financial services and technology companies should be thinking about humor. And as Raphael alluded to, we did explore a range of humor, from the really, really wacky, slapsticky to the like not so funny. The bath time spot that you saw up there is the funniest, wackiest one, I'll say, that we saw. We also have ones that are a little bit more serious. The ones that tested the best are kind of right in the middle. They're like sweet, humorous, and endearing. And that's why, the dad with the 2 babies and the guy with the dogs and the 2 daughters, those really, really resonated quite well with consumers in testing.
And to build on that, one thing that was really important in kind of launching the brand is establishing the credibility, and that's why we use kind of this more kind of TV, online video kind of approach first to be able to establish the brand as a credible player. And now, as we continue building on the brand platform that we've established, layering in some of our in-house creators, also working with influencers, being able to really come even closer to people's life and the type of content that they enjoy is going to be kind of the next frontier for us for this year as we drive transaction during kind of holiday season, finding those opportunities where people are enjoying shopping or transacting, and how can we build on that in a way that's super relevant, still keeping the entertainment value. For Valentine's Day, we had a lot of fun kind of creating some of those relatable situations, more lo-fi, but it's really drove really great engagement on social platform for us, which kind of give us good learning for what we're going to do this year.
I know we're getting closer to time here, and before we open for questions, one of the takeaways that I had from our conversations leading up to this, and we didn't touch on it yet today, is looking for those unexpected moments that we don't think about as being a brand moment. And for me, as I got to know both of you, this idea of looking at the checkout moment and saying that's an unexpected brand moment that people generally either are ambivalent about or hate. How do we turn that around, and how do we make that a really great brand moment? And how do we, in many ways, when I looked at the creative, I was like, you're not marketing Paze, you're marketing the moment. You're marketing this idea to your three constituencies that you can have this trusted experience and it can be a moment of delight as opposed to a drag. So that was a big learning for me as I thought about it. But what I'd love is for you to share with the audience what your biggest learning was in this process that they can think about as they go back and look for unexpected moments that they might be overlooking.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've talked to a lot of the merchants who are looking to really achieve their business objectives, as you said. And it's true. The checkout moment is an overlooked brand moment. And if I put myself in the shoes of a marketing lead at a merchant, what you're trying to do, you're doing so much work to raise your awareness and get people to come to your site, to put products in their shopping cart, and then to lose them at the last minute at checkout. Like, that's so disheartening, right? So the big aha was there's a better way. There's a way to make people feel very like that their payment right then and there is going to be secure, and feel confident when they make that checkout solution. So I think that is really a way to extend the brand all the way across, but also improve your customer satisfaction and sales.
And on this side, I think a lot of the work that we do at Spaceship and even the group that we're part of is really kind of understanding how the brands kind of become part of people's life and their habits, their rituals, and being able to really position Paze as a way to make something that, I mean, I do a little too often in the day, which is online shopping, but being able to turn that into a positive experience over time, and having that positive association is really key. So being able to be that for consumer and keep it simple, and making sure that you don't have nervosity with your data being stolen is a positive movement. So we're excited to be able to find the right people to tell the story.
Yeah, I love that. Finding the right people to tell a story and knowing your audience so well, like the coming up, identifying who the protectionists are and really understanding them feels like it was core to developing the concept. So I love that. We've got 5 minutes or so left, so I'd like to open up for questions.
Question? Hey, Dylan, thank you for being here and for sharing with us. How do you work with your merchants to kind of compete for the CTA real estate? Because like if I think about like Fanatics, for instance, I'm used to going on there and I'm used to there being PayPal and I'm used to there being Apple Pay in addition to like the fan cash and all of that. So how do you strike that balance with the merchants of introducing something new, getting that real estate, but also possibly putting a friction in a loyalist life?
Well, first of all, thank you for being here. And I love that question about Fanatics. You know, it's a working relationship, right? And so the great thing is we're all really trying to achieve the same thing. And so how do you really make sure that, you understand the brief from the merchant and what they're looking to achieve, and then look to see how does the Paze checkout solution help them meet their goals. So that's really how we approach it. And it varies merchant to merchant, right? Some of them are thinking about the checkout solution. Some of them are thinking about how do I grow my customer base. Some of them are thinking about how do I get repeat customers, right? So that's the beauty of working with each of these merchants and the banks, because we can come up with a really lovely, comprehensive marketing plan to support each of these merchants. So there's a lot more to the conversation than that moment of checkout. And that's really, again, what it's all about.
And I would also imagine that it's about the merchant understanding their audience and their audience's behavior in their checkout process, right? To understand how do they behave, how do they look at the screen, where are their eyes going, what are they doing in order to get to that amount of real estate and have that discussion about how do we improve it.
Hi. So we've heard a lot about kind of how complex Paze is in the system. You're launching a brand new brand. You have a bunch of different bank clients to deal with, multiple retailers. Talk about kind of the product realities of that, but I'm just curious from a campaign perspective. You're talking about a campaign with humor. What can you share with us as lessons to take away of how to get a campaign like that out the door with so many constituents in such a complex organization?
Yeah, you're asking about how to get a campaign out the door. So when you've got a lot of constituents, right? Because you've got banks, we've got merchants, all that stuff. So one of my big mottos was don't be late. So I did not want to be the head of marketing who was late and the product was ready and we were not. So that was rule number one. And so we really made sure that as we were working on the brief, working on the creative with the spaceship team, that we were ready and we kept a really tight timeline. The other thing I think that's really important in marketing is being a partner to the business, right? A lot of people in marketing, you think of yourself as a CMO or sometimes the chief connecting officer, right? So really working very, very closely with the product teams, with the tech teams, with the people who are sales and customer facing, and really showing up as marketing as the problem solver. So I think those are kind of my two key takeaways in terms of how to launch something this big. And by the way, I also want to say, have fun. Launching a new product is one of the most fun things you will ever work on in your life. If you ever have the chance to do it, I would really encourage each of you to do it.
I'll just add one note is obviously when we're trying to come up with creative ideas and convincing banks and credit unions, multiple of them, I think kind of establishing that partnership and that really close working relationship. So it's kind of really kind of us together trying to convince, making sure that we get the support from all the banks who are part of the process. So it doesn't make it an easy exercise, but yeah, I think if we have a clear vision, clear message, and we use the tools at our disposal, being entertaining, being funny in a way that's really meant to drive business, we were able to really get good momentum with their support. So even though it's kind of rings on fire sometimes, it's also really exciting to be able to have their support.
Great. Andrea, Johann, Raphael, thank you very much. Please give a warm round of applause over here.
Thank you.
Excellent panel.
Thanks, everybody.
Excellent panel.